Roundup right here every day. It's actually the Barron's Roundup, and it's here every week, but I had to get some whistle and song in for you guys. Got the Van Gogh replica behind me because I'm going to talk your ear off. Without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so the Barron's magazine for the week of July 27th, 2020, we got electric and hydrogen trucks on the front cover there. We'll go back to that, but that's how the magazine is looking this week. So to start us off, we're staying on topic from a previous video. This one's awesome, starting off today with Danish energy giant has the wind at its back. A couple days ago, you heard me talking about Vestas Wind Energy as being an unbelievable play. Remember, they're manufacturing the windmills. Well, Ørsted is partway through a $30 billion investment plan to become one of the few future renewables majors. Danish state has a 50% stake in the company. You think the Danish are going to buy windmills from General Electric, or will they go with the market leader that's in their own country and not put these massive devices on a boat across the ocean? We're thinking this is more specific than you'll find from some promoter just saying renewables and wind. Action steps. Well on track to deliver our financial targets of 20% average growth in profits from operating renewable assets from 2017 to 2023. 20% profit. Now, this is trading at 46 times this year's expected earnings. So for reference, MasterCard, Visa, we're looking at double-digit growth as well. Not quite 20. But those are going to be trading typically in the 30s as far as PE. So, proportional, but over the years that effect decreases. That's why they talk about longer-term investors who are younger being more able to purchase higher multiple holdings. 30% market share of production assets in 5 countries and 6 onshore wind farms in the U.S. and 12 in the U.K., so they're also going international. And by the way, CEO Henrik Poulsen was the one who had made the comment from earlier. Got to make sure we are attributing these quotes to folks. Warren Buffett buys more Bank of America. If you're going to find a time to buy bank stocks, I think what we learned this year is perhaps in a downturn is the best time to do it, because if you buy it when everything's up, it seems like they can only go down as far as the total wipeout that happened with mortgages and commercial loans. I mean, every commercial now seems to be about payment forbearance, or they're doing auto loans with no interest for 6 years. Does that sound like a big money maker? You tell me in the comments. No, we'll have more substantive stuff in the comments than that. Canadian Pacific Railway, they called that one a buy. Railroads, I don't see them constructing a bunch of new ones, and it's probably not easy, especially when you got Big Moose standing in the way. This here it says buy. We're not going into a whole railroads thing right now. Not that they're not interesting, because they are, but just want to put that kind of idea on your radar as far as seeking out investments that are strong, stable, that aren't going away, and that it's going to be hard to replace or replicate it. Choo-choo! Okay. If the big 5 falter, rest of the stock market could be deep sixth. What's my opinion on the congressional hearings upcoming? Between it being a Zoom meeting, so it's hard to get the face-to-face jab with Mark Zuckerberg. I think it's going to be relatively muted. I think a lot of the committee members own a bunch of the stock anyway. Interesting takeaway. We're not going to dive into the specifics on this, but the interesting takeaway as far as what makes index funds a good idea is that it means that you will have exposure to those winners, right? So if you had index funds held between 2010 and 2020 versus someone who maybe had picked stocks individually that didn't include Facebook, Amazon, Microsoft, Google, Netflix, you may have missed out on some of the big winning. Market concentration right now, it's around 20% of that S&P's value is wrapped up in these companies. A lot of people are concerned about it. If you look early 20th century, there was similar stuff going on, but big tech has a huge sway in the market, so I don't speculate short-term on price, just something to be looking out for. This is a funny one. Tobacco and ESG, which is environmentally sustainable. There's a bunch of different terms for it. The reason I don't feel like going into it is because I've already been reading about it in Business and Society. So we're looking at things like charitable initiatives or taking a stance on an issue And what was interesting is a 192-page report from Philip Morris International. Just didn't figure it was worth our time to read about the positive impacts of a tobacco company. Let us not humor them. However, let us consider them as a potentially interesting investment. So Altria, right? Dividend investment. It's a dividend aristocrat yielding an 8%. They just raised the thing. They're not overly leveraged as far as the free cash flow can totally cover that dividend for a while. Yeah, but Jake, fewer people are smoking. Yeah, but they've been able to proportionally increase the price over time. I guess that's a good point. Governments don't exactly have consumer groups that protect cigarette smokers' budgets, right? Nobody has a problem with those prices going up. And people not only will continue to buy them, but they will buy more of them in a recession, which is why, to me, it doesn't make so much sense that it hasn't recovered nearly as much as a bunch of other stocks have since the COVID crash. Really low valuation for some solid stuff. And marijuana stocks. You buy a marijuana stock. I personally haven't purchased any. Innovative industrial properties is a good one to look up as far as one that's already paying a dividend and doesn't rely on consumers' preference for, oh, I want to buy this brand versus this brand. It's releasing out greenhouses and grow areas. So whoever ends up winning the thing, they got to be growing it. Innovative industrial properties. Nonetheless, big tobacco, I think, seems reasonable that they would have some type of in as far as making some acquisitions here. Not that they've all been good, because we all know Altria got Juul, and that has been a big flop. But even in this article, Altria bought a stake in Juul Labs, the vaping market leader, in 2018, but that backfired when it turned out that millions of high schoolers were vaping and some states sued. The paragraph ends there. It doesn't say that Juul is completely divested. It doesn't say it's gone. It doesn't say that the lawsuits were totally debilitating. My prediction is that the Juul situation may just start coming back. That just makes sense to me. I feel like people like a smaller little thing versus, not everybody's coming up with a big juice canister doing a huge strawberry cloud. Comical at times even. So just something to look at. I may snap up a few shares just because I like that big cash flow, and they really are so darn cheap. Safe payment here. Not that I endorse the product. I wouldn't manufacture it myself, but we're buying shares secondhand off of someone else. So that will be a debate for another time. 68% of unemployment recipients who make more with their federal $600 a week payment from their old job. If you're on the unemployment, a couple things to keep in mind. Taxation. It may not be the best for you tax-wise. I'll let you do your own research there. Second, resume. And of course, keeping safety in mind and things like that. I think there are ways to start getting at least some type of safe work. It doesn't have to be in a restaurant or doing in-home care with sick people. There, be looking around for some options here. We got to get the economy rolling. And I just think that if someone asks you, what were you doing in 2020, or what had you done to create employment for yourself, alternatives to that would be preferred and appreciated. Again, the heart goes out to everybody whose business or workplace has been interrupted. A long race to self-driving. Here's the hot take update, all right? Of course, everybody knows it's going to be a big deal. Everybody knows that's in general where things are going. One of the effects this year has been a major capital wipeout for people that have been developing the technology. So something I've read in a previous Barron's is that our time frame for when we can expect it has unfortunately been pushed back due to the halting of R&D programs. The way I'm somewhat involved in the self-driving investment situation is through NVIDIA. They've got unbelievable free cash flow, and I'm not the type of guy who's gonna distinguish between the quality of their engineering team versus that of another company that's maybe more specifically focused on self-driving. What I do know is that they're a founder-led company with awesome cash flow that has a solid contract with an established company already, and so knowing that contract is in place, I want to get a little piece of that artificial intelligence self-driving portion, and so that's just how I'm doing it, keeping it simple. Earnings this week, Altria Group, so I bet you that one's going to go up if people see that. Guess what? People that are even more stressed out are still ripping the cigs. Pfizer had some comments about them last week. We'll see how that does. But again, I'm not obsessing over it. That's a long term bet. Starbucks, that's one of the plays we're looking at long term. And then Visa. Here's the interesting thing about Visa. There are literally, and there'll be another video about this too. You're seeing signs that say no coins available or cash shortage. So even though payment volumes have been down, what is happening is payments are migrating online, where Visa also has a very strong presence, and the percentage of payments that are made in cash is decreasing. Consider you're getting, the food dropped off on a roadside basis at Chili's, and you're getting out all the paper and the coins are dropping on the ground. It's a lot less smooth than if you're just sitting there at the table and you drop it. So I think the card situation, or what they've been doing at Taco Bell, I may have been the one who's seen this a couple times. They reach a thing out and then you just stick the card. It's super no contact. So Visa, zero worry about their earnings. It just doesn't. I spend no time thinking about it besides if I'm trying to get you in the loop. Alphabet and Amazon on Thursday. We're hearing more about Alphabet directly competing with Amazon. I'd like to see what the YouTube run rate is. That thing has grown by 17% revenue average per year, and that's partially why I'm here. And that will be very interesting because they're thought of as being a little more economically sensitive than maybe Microsoft or Amazon. But you can't give up on Alphabet. They did huge share repurchases in February. Okay, I'm going to keep the details short there, so you'll want to tune back in. AbbVie Pharmaceutical, it's been considered a very low-valued dividend stock, and it's come up from the lows as well. Kind of interesting to see what's there. A bunch of oil companies. For the tough stomach investor, you think tobacco is intense. You think pipelines are intense. You remember these California fires? Look at this. We knew it was only time until someone says PG&E looks good after bankruptcy. So if you're really tough and willing to wait till at least 2023, which is when they anticipate dividends being paid. Facts from the article that you want to know. They can access a $21 billion state-run fund to cover future catastrophic wildfire costs. Second, the company is participating in that fund. The state law now caps PG&E shareholders' liabilities for wildfires at a fifth of the capital base it used to set electricity rates, or a 3-year rolling sum of $2.4 billion. So $2.4 billion, do I know exactly how substantial of a number that is in comparison to the capital base? I actually don't. I haven't looked into that part. We're just thinking big ideas here as far as like, okay, favorable regulatory environments and how are that going to relate to our investments. In California, we got a lot of natural disaster risk, you got intense government out there. I have some alternative ideas on things like that. Kind of like the Danish one we talked about before, plus another one I haven't mentioned yet, but will. Okay, that pretty much wraps up the information here. There's some stuff about hydrogen. It's probably going to work. Oh, Nikola, that's the last one. Why do I own 2 shares of it? Well, with there's not exactly an electric trucking ETF that's out there. I'm more so going for the vision. Anheuser-Busch, I'm in St. Louis. They're based in St. Louis. Did a order for several thousand trucks. So there's actually orders on the book from an established business that wouldn't do something like that if it didn't make sense. Why the truck versus maybe the car? Well, some of these other ones I read about in here, they're doing vans for UPS, and vans are great, but I feel like the barrier to entry to making vans is not quite as substantial as to making 10,000 pound and above, which is considered medium truck, and then 26,000 pound and above, which is considered the large truck. So not only that, but let's talk about the charging station situation. So Nikola, part of what their deal is going to be, and what makes trucking different from personal commuter vehicles, is that they can put these stations on the large routes that are used by their companies. As they say, if you bought it, a trucker brought it. That's not going away, and neither is the impetus for being environmentally positive. So there's a manufacturing facility that's already getting underway. So as far as who's kind of getting there first and who seems like they've got a good shot, that to me was enough to buy 2 shares. Was it at the best value? Not quite. We can go into the details on that another time. And I'm not saying that's something you got to rush out and do. It's just something I happen to have chosen. So very patiently see what happens on the trucking end. Make sure that next time you talk to a trucker, you tell them thanks for keeping this economy rolling. Last thing I'm going to say, this hat, check it out. St. Olaf College, they actually have a windmill on campus, and I thought that was kind of cool. So that's my shout out for the video today. Have an awesome rest of the weekend. Let's get after it.